let's go ahead and get started, and maybe we'll go around and just do introductions. So who you are, your name, if you want to share your children's names, but what grades they're in, and then maybe what school they were at before you joined us at Northern Lights. So I can start. My name is Emily Kindlespire, and I work at St. Paul School of Northern Lights. My official title is the Director of Community Relations, but what that really means is I get to know the families and the students really well, and I get to come up with creative ways for us to learn about one another a little more deeply and do fun activities like parent panels on Facebook. So that's me. Rachel, you want to go next?
Sure, I'm Rachel. I'm the school leader at St. Paul School of Northern Lights. I am joined today by the always cute and often needy Johan. Hi, Johan. So I'm going to keep myself muted for most of this. But yeah, it is an absolute joy to be able to work at Northern Lights, and we have some really awesome families and students, and I'm excited for all the folks that are going to join us.
So maybe let's go alphabetical order. So we'll go Emma, Melissa, Mitch, and then Tanya.
Sure. Hi, I'm Emma Kipley-Ogman. I have a current second grader and an incoming kindergartner also. And oh, was there one more thing? That's it. Great.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I need to unmute myself. My name is Melissa. I have a kindergartner, be first grader, and currently a fourth grader, and they were both in St. Paul Public School System prior to coming to Northern Lights.
Yeah, that's what I forgot. Thanks, Melissa. My second rising third grader was at GMing, also in St. Paul Public Schools, and the little one was in pre-K at a Montessori pre-K.
All right, my name's Mitch, and I have Oscar and Henry, and they are twins in third grade, the third and fourth grade combined. And previous to this, they went to St. Paul Public Schools Expo Elementary. I also have a daughter who's 4.5, so she won't be in school next year, but it'd be the year after at Northern Lights.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya, and my son River is in the kindergarten room at St. Paul School of Northern Lights. And previously, he was at J.J. Hill, St. Paul Public Schools.
Great. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. And I think just maybe to start us off, we had one parent ask earlier today, sort of what aspects of the school that each of you appreciate most. So if you want to take turns speaking to that, and maybe we'll stick with that same order. And if you ever just don't want to answer a question, you can always pass. But maybe that will be easiest if we kind of stick with the same flow. I know it can be a bit awkward on Zoom calls sometimes. So the question is, what aspects of Northern Lights do you appreciate most?
Oh my goodness. I'm so deeply appreciative. And in this time, it is so sweet to see the two of you, Rachel and Emily, and then the three of you parents also. It's like really nice. I think at the top of my list are the human beings who make up the school community, like the teachers and the school leaders, and the work that they do to create learning environments with our children. And my kid is like a crazy reader. He loves books. And so the librarian of the school is a volunteer. She's there all the time, and she like knows him and always is giving him the next book. It's like the human beings who make up the school community know our children as individual humans with their particular quirks, and are there to like support, sustain, encourage, and grow them up. And that's the thing that I'm most deeply appreciative of.
gosh, kind of like Emily, there's many things. First of all, I feel like it's really a holistic approach to care for the children, and what that means is that the care for the children includes care for the family. And my daughter, she was failing in public school. It wasn't right for her, and I wasn't sure what she needed. And this turned out to be everything she needed. Just to build off what Emma said, they know our kids. They know their strengths and they celebrate those strengths. They know the areas where they need more improvement, and they focus on that. They listen. I haven't ever had too much to say other than good things, but there was a time where I felt like I needed to give some feedback, and Rachel sat and she listened, um, and she let me say what I have to say, and there was no interruption. And I feel like they really make an effort to incorporate the parent feedback. um, I feel like they have a genuine empathy, not just for the students, but the whole world around them. And that's important to me. But I have felt so supported, and just the progress that the kids have made. I don't know a whole lot about, their style of teaching going into this. There were some concerns, but anything I had was addressed thoroughly, and all I had to do was sit back and watch and let them do their thing. And so that's a few of many things. I could talk forever, but I won't take up all the time that I appreciate about the school.
Yeah, so Emma and Melissa are going to take all the good answers, right? There's so many things to be thankful for. If you go last, Tanya's really in trouble. So they're all going to be said. But I agree. I agree with everything that Emma and Melissa said. Other things that I really appreciate about the school, I think Emily and Rachel, who are on this call, have done a really good job. It's kind of a hard thing to do in the first year of a school, and there's a lot of things that they were flexible on, a lot of kind of sudden changes that they had to incorporate, and distance learning and things like that. And distance learning in particular, just hearing about from some of my friends and what other schools are doing, I've been really impressed with kind of how Northern Lights has chosen to stick with their philosophy and is trying to do kind of the best approach, trying to incorporate those relationships and continue that through the distance learning, which is a hard time for any school, let alone a school that's still in its first year. So I've been really appreciative of that. The mixed age classrooms I like. So my sons are in third grade, and it's a third and fourth grade shared combined right now. And I think it's been good for them to kind of get to know some of the older kids, to work on some of the older kids stuff that they're maybe a little better at, but stuff that they're not as good at, and they can stick down in their existing grade. And so it's nice to kind of have that flexibility. And then again, on the teacher stuff, we had a good time at St. Paul Public Schools. I have no complaints there, but the difference, like when we went to conferences versus our old school versus our new school, I felt like the teacher really knew our kids, and especially with twins, it's really subtle differences sometimes in their personality. But our teacher really kind of uncovered those same differences that my wife and I talked about. And I remember going to that first conference there, and we both, after the conference, were really happy and said, we never had a conference like that, where we felt like they really understood our kids and really really wanted to work with their strengths and weaknesses.
All right, so I guess I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna start with probably more of a story. As a single mom and single working mom, I should say, I had to put River into childcare since he was 4 months old, and all up until we started St. Paul Northern Lights, he cried every single day that I dropped him off. Cried and hated being away from me, and it wasn't just like a once in a while, most kids would get used to it and they would be okay with it. It was heart-wrenching every single day. And it broke my heart every single day. And he's very excited to be around people and to learn things. And that was just when he talked about hating going to school in preschool, my heart broke even more. And since the first day that he has gone to Northern Lights, he has asked to go every single day and been excited. And now we get tears because he can't go to school because of the stay-at-home order. And it's been to see not just his academics start to blossom, but just him as his being able to be around socially around people, building friendships, being able to talk about feelings and all of the things that he's excited about. It is a perfect fit for myself and for River.
Thank you all for sharing those. Yeah, it's Rachel and I haven't seen many of these parents in months now, and so hearing you talk about your children just reminds me just how much I love them and miss them all. So thank you for being here and having these conversations with us. One of the other questions that we got are, have you noticed are areas of growth for Northern Lights?
I mean, a baby just starting to walk has a lot of growing to do, right? And one of the things that I love about this school is that we all get to be a part of growing that. Like, it doesn't feel to me like you have to do this thing. It's like, what do we do together to grow this place that's growing up all of our kids and us with them? So, of course, there's a ton of growing to do. It was really like, I think back to a year ago where we started having some meetings with some parents who were going to be sending their kids to this thing that didn't exist in the fall. And we read a text that was about making the road with walking, like that's how you make the road. And so now we've walked a little way together, some of us, and the road is going to continue to grow and shift and change. So I just think about that was kind of my core orientation to coming into this school, was like, this road hasn't been walked ever. Here we go with our feet, you know? And so I think like one major area of growth is so many of our teachers don't have much experience with the kind of learning that we're trying to create together. And ed schools in this country are not teaching how to do constructivist learning with children, where children are seen as like full human beings and are invited into the core work of democracy by bringing their ideas into the space and being in dialogue with each other. So I think the place that I'm like waiting for us to grow into community, our children and their teachers together, is to really grow in those skills, to grow in the practices of asking deep questions with children and engaging children together in the work of conversation. So that's the place that like I'm really excited to watch continue to grow at Northern Lights.
I would say that I don't know that I have a whole lot different to say outside of Emma, because I am also a working parent. I don't often have a lot of time to probably be as proactive in some of the process development and some of the committees that are available through the school. So how I measure the growth of the school is kind of the growth of my children, and them being developed in, you know, and learning about civic responsibility and the world that they live in and the world that they face. It's difficult, and they have my children are Black, I'm biracial. They have challenges before them that everybody may not face. And so some of the things that they're learning and growing along with the school are turning them into well-rounded people. I've never felt like my son's teacher was teaching him to first grade and my daughter's teacher was teaching her to fifth grade. They're teaching them how to be well-rounded human beings with empathy and awareness of their environment and an awareness of the world around them. So I feel like there's been a lot of growth in that area as far as really soliciting input from the parents and the children and on different ways that we can teach these kids so that they're more prepared for the world that they're going to face.
So I'll just caveat my response here saying that we're very happy with Northern Lights and I think it is been a really good experience for us so far. But you know, when we first came in there in August, you come into a school and it's all new teachers that don't know each other. It's all new kids that don't know each other, and it's all new parents that don't know each other. So there's just kind of a natural growth that has been interrupted a little bit from the distance learning and the shutdown that, you know, I'm hoping will continue on, or, you know, still is continuing on in some ways. But I look forward to that continuing to grow throughout the years as we get to know each other, get to really foster that sense of community within the school. You know, it's kind of unfortunate timing that it happened in our first year. You know, if we had gotten through that first year, it would have been even a different situation then. You know, other stuff, I guess at our old school, I came in there and we just plugged our kids in and I didn't have to get involved. I didn't have to do anything because there was already this well-established group of parents. They had all these traditions set. We do this in the fall. We have this fundraiser. We do this. Like the teachers had all these events set up. It was, you know, I could be lazy there. So on one hand, you know, it was kind of scary to not have that. But on the other hand, it gives us the opportunity to really make things how we want them to be and think a little bit more about, you know, what type of fundraisers do we want to do that reflect the values of the school, or what are the events? How do we want our events to work, and how does that reflect the values of the school and our philosophy and what our kids want to do? So, you know, there's a lot of things like that that are just because it's a new school. You know, there are things that just don't plug in as easily as they would in an existing school. But I think we made huge strides in this past, you know, half year or year so far. And I think we have the pieces in place to kind of continue going on from there.
So I guess I'm just going to start with, you know, my older son was also a part of a new school, like a startup school. And so I was prepared for a lot of things to not go so well the first year. A lot of things that are like high expectations and yes, we're going to do all these things. And then it just doesn't come around. And so going in there with some patience and some grace and understanding that we have a lot of room. I've been more than pleasantly surprised at how well it's gone, and just really knowing that there's a solid foundation and we all are growing, right? There's always room for growth for every person and every organization, every community. We're all growing. I am also excited to start to see some more of the things about, you know, like working in the garden and the kids being able to have those skills and working and being able to do cooking and really connecting with the land more, and also connecting with people more and understanding, you know, especially right now what our community is going through, the grieving that we're going through, and at this moment in, you know, being able to, you know, I look forward, I wouldn't say that it's room for growth, but I look forward to seeing and watching and being a part of how the school is able to be a part of the healing process in this community that we have, you know, the issues that are happening right now. I think that's really it. Everybody else has covered some of the other things, but the school isn't just about dropping my son off and that's it. It's really about, you know, pushing me to be able to be a part of his education more, part of the community more. And that's exciting for me.
Thank you all. Our next question that we have is, so I'll read it as the parent wrote it. The parent says, I'm wondering if the parents could share more about what the sense of community looks and feels like outside of school hours and academics. I know deep friendships can develop during these years for children, and I'm wondering what the connection looks like for your children, given that a charter school family may live in different neighborhoods and in different cities. So sort of what the sense of the community looks and feels like outside of school hours.
One thing that I notice in the ways that our children, or at least the stories that I hear about the ways that our children are interacting in school, is that the goal isn't this kind of like individual path, but that our children actually are interacting with each other differently than how they were like in the Montessori preschool that my daughter is in, and in Jiming where my son was, where it felt more like you are an individual trying to make progress. So the process, the educational work that's happening, like the learning work that's happening, is happening between the children also. So there is this work of friendship and sorting out relationships and navigating challenges and talking to each other and working things out. And all of that is also happening in the framework of the learning. And that is a path towards those dimensions of friendship also. So I see that. A few like slightly extracurricular things, like during the Wednesday time, which might change days or whatever it is, that teachers are preparing and there were volunteers kind of supporting our kids, there was the space for creativity, and kids were inventing all these clubs and inviting them into them. The one my kid did the most was this music club where they made instruments out of cardboard, and it was noisy. And so I see that, and then I see my son interested in following interests of his friends. So he is excited about learning to play the ukulele because friends of his are learning to play the ukulele. And the teacher who's teaching some music classes at school, even right now, offers a ukulele club. And he got really motivated to learn that, in part because of his friends, right? So these relationships build them into learning. Other contexts that we've had while we were in school, my son often wanted to play at the playground nearby just at the end of the school day, and a number of kids would be there every day. So that there was space for that. We all live in different neighborhoods, but we were there for a little while at the end of the school day, some kids and some parents. Oh, even now in this time, my son is really excited to do social distance visits with his friends who live nearby. So he'll go on a walk in the morning and knock on a friend's door and stand on the sidewalk and talk from there. So for some of the kids who do live a little bit closer by, there still is this desire for connection in 3D that they're managing to create some with each other, which is very encouraging.
I'm going to be honest in my response to this question. I'm probably not the best person to speak on that. My kids are in after school care at Northern Lights after school hours, and because of my work schedule, I'm not able to do probably a lot of those things. So I'm not a good person to speak on that experience. What I will say though is that the opportunities are there. They are provided. Many different opportunities for relationship building amongst parents and amongst kids outside of school hours. I personally just haven't been able to participate.
So again, my sons I have twins, so they have each other all the time, and sometimes those relationships they find not as important. But I've actually been impressed that both of them have formed some pretty good friendships within their class. I think a lot of the educational philosophy with like project-based learning and experiential type learning has been good for forming those relationships. Where they had this big project where it was on World War II, and so my sons and a couple other students started working on like a comic book about World War II, and there was another project where they were working on ancient civilizations, and I think everyone had to build a ziggurat, like a tower, ziggurat tower, and they were kind of all working together. And I think in some ways that helps a lot with the relationships, because you're forced to kind of understand each other a little bit better because you're contributing to those group projects in building things together rather than just sitting and independently doing your worksheet or whatever that is. In terms of the geographical kind of distance, for us, I haven't noticed so much of a difference from where we're at before. So within St. Paul schools, probably a lot of you already know this, but there's kind of this choice system. And so at the school that we were at, there were already kids from all over St. Paul, very far away locations. I mean, not different cities. Well, although I guess, no, I don't think there were. But one of their friends, so we have friends like Emma's kid is friends that are close to our neighborhood. We have some friends, there's one of their better friends lives in one of the northern suburbs, Arden Hills, I think, or Shoreview. And, we've done some play dates and things like that. But, I feel like their relationships have been growing. I feel like they get along well with their fellow students and, have found a good group of kids to hang out with. And when we have events like the Harvest Fest in the fall, you see little packs of kids running around and doing their thing and eating marshmallows and playing in the gym. And so, I don't think it's an unusual sort of construct to have a charter school bringing kids from lots of different neighborhoods. And for my kids, it's worked pretty well.
I'm going to say pretty much the same things. Like, one of the things that we talk about when we're talking about the school, my partner and myself, we talk about how amazing it is that, so when River came to the school, he was very withdrawn and didn't interact very well with kids in the group. And his teacher was very patient with him. And so were the other students. And they waited for him to be able to feel comfortable to be a part of everything. And that was talked about all the time with us. And one of the bigger things that we talk about is just the emphasis on interpersonal relationships in the classroom and within the school. And, when you come in and go to conferences and his teacher has a picture of him and another student that had a problem, and they were able to solve it together. And here's the problem, and this is how they solved it. And they both are just smiling from ear to ear because they solved a problem and they were able to work through a conflict, interpersonal conflict together. And that's really showing, it's teaching our kids the things that humans need to know, right? And that we never think about in school before. It's like humans need to know how to have conflict and how to work through those things. I know that I didn't learn to do that until I was an adult in it. So it's really exciting for me to know that he's learning to do those things just as a normal behavior. And then about, it's hard because, again, my partner and myself, we both work long hours. And so our son also goes to, after the after school program. But when we try to go there early to pick him up, he gets angry because he wants to hang out with his friends. He's like, I want to play with my friends longer. And as far as like distance and, people coming from different neighborhoods, we haven't really noticed that either. He's got a lot of friends. I'm lucky because I know a couple of the parents and the families that we've been very close friends before. And so we continue those relationships, in with the stay-at-home order. And it's been hard on all of our kids, I think, and all of us as a community, because even walking River into school every day and being able to, hey, how's it going? And just really connecting with people. It's not just this, surface, hey, how's it going? It's really deep connecting with people. And that's important. And knowing that everyone in the school actually is concerned and they do take the time. Okay, this is happening and we want to work through this together as a community. And, I do a lot of community activism work, and that word community gets, overused so much that we really don't know what it means. And so I would say that we're more than just a community. We're a family, we're a neighborhood, we're, we're working together to build and raise children. We're a village of raising all of our children together.
That's beautiful, Tanya. Thank you. Thank you. Another question that we had received from a parent is they're curious how discipline is handled at Northern Lights. So if some of you would like to share how this has felt for your families, but I also know that it's personal and you might not want to share your child's story about it. So if you don't want to share specifics, but maybe overall how things have been communicated with you as parents, just again, whatever you feel comfortable with.
So I have a kid who has taken the opportunity to take advantage of available disciplinary practices at Northern Lights, shall we say. That is, my kid has really big feelings and struggles a lot, and being part of a group is really not natural for him, and that's where his growing edge lives. And one of the reasons we chose Northern Lights was because we knew he needed an environment that was gonna keep social and emotional growth at the center and not put it at the side. And so I have really appreciated, so it's another place of growth and learning for all of us. But having disciplinary work be rooted in restorative practices, and to me that means my hope is that our children will be responsible for their actions and the impacts of their actions, and that the school will be helping them to take responsibility for that, learn from it, and shift and grow. So I see that in practice. I think it's a place where we all get to grow also. Like we're not at the end of the road on that one. I think it's hard work to do with children, and to figure out how do you do that with kids who, some of them are going to take stuff in by listening, and some of them are going to need to move their bodies, and some of them are going to, so there's place for all of that. And I'll say, like, my kid knows Rachel really well, and Rachel's child like knows that my kid is called, Rachel's best friend, and which is like the cutest thing in the world. And we've also been really grateful for the special rights practices at the school of the evaluation practice and helping really sort out what's going on for this kid and how do we help them? How do we help them grow? So I would say, like, just today in the Zooms, in my kid's meeting with his special rights teacher, she helped him. Another kid in the Zoom had a big feeling. He like went on to something else, and she helped him come back into the feeling and talk about what was happening and offer something in response. So I see that as a big part of disciplinary work, is the work of what kind of learning do these kids need, and how are the adults of the community helping them, how can help them do that learning. And I see that happening. It's really hard work, and I'm so grateful.
I would say, I think how it works in my experience is that it's very collaborative with the family, and that's very important because we all raise our children differently, and so you really can't have a blanket policy that affects every child on how you deal with discipline. So I've had situations with my kids, and I got a phone call. This is what happened. One of the teachers had my son write me a letter of what he had done that day. But then we talk about it, and they really make an effort to mirror the feedback they got from me in whatever their discipline is. And so, for instance, we had this crack toy. I can't even remember the name of it, but it was like crack for all the kids.
It's a Beyblade,
The
Melissa?
Beyblades. Okay, so I didn't know what they were. I made the mistake of buying them for Christmas. My son snuck them to school 3 different times. And so the third time Emily called me, I said, throw them all in the trash. Because that's what I would do at home. And that's what she did. And I appreciated that. There wasn't any I was being too harsh. So the communication is the biggest piece. And not only learning the kids, but learning the parents. And you can't learn everybody's in and outs, but making an effort to try to understand the cultural environments that these kids from and try to integrate that into what they're doing with them at school. So yeah, that's my story.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo Emma and Melissa's comments again. I think this is a growth area. Again, if you're thinking of a school starting out and you have a written policy of this is what we think we're going to do for discipline, and no teachers know each other and no students know each other and the parents don't know each other. It was, a little bumpy those first couple months, I think. But one of the things that I really liked was kind of the community aspect within the classroom. So there were some things, it was like, boys versus girls, or, a group of boys that like built a fort out of sticks, and then my kids like collapsed the fort on this other kid and hit his head and the sticks, or, things like that that came up. And each of those instances that there was, kind of like a big classroom meeting within their classroom about like, well, how do we feel about boys versus girls? And is there any reason that we would say, a girl can't do this or a boy shouldn't do this? Or, the fourth thing was like, well, how are we talking about sharing? And is, how do you think that made him feel? And it to me at the time felt like kind of overkill. I would have just, said like, well, this kid screwed up, punish him and move on. But that's why I'm not an educator, I guess. But I think that the good thing about it is that it brought that responsibility to the children in third grade, and the teachers did a nice job, and Emily and Rachel, of kind of guiding that thought process. So you're not just telling them do this, don't do that, but really building those thoughts in their head and thinking about how they want that community and how they want their classroom and how they want their school to be. And so I really appreciated that.
So I'm going to start out by saying I don't really know if discipline is the correct word. We want to use accountability. And so we're teaching our children accountability for harm that's caused to the community or harm that they've received from someone in the community, and how do we come together. And that's really rooted in restorative practices, or transformative justice is what we usually call that, because you're building something that wasn't there before. And I think that really starts with the fact that we have circles. The kids have circles every day, right? And they start to build connection with each other. So then when something happens, when there's harm that's done to someone in the community by someone, someone's always giving and someone's receiving harm, it means something, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to hurt this person because they're my friend or because they're a part of my classroom. And now I see what my actions did to cause this person harm. And that's really where we can instill real change and real, not a fear of I'm going to get in trouble, but a real empathy and compassion with our fellow, classmates, friends, family, community members. I can just give a little story. The blades were the biggest issue with my son also, right? It was the hottest topic ever. We were like, what are these things and why are they acting this way because of these ridiculous toys? But they were. And my son had taken something that wasn't his. And there was a letter that was written to us, and my partner and myself had a long talk about it and thought, what do we really want to happen here? And we don't want to, make River feel bad. But we want him to know what that caused to other people. And so we talked with Emily and Rachel and decided that we wanted him to be a part of a circle, and to be able to, an accountability restorative circle. And they were able to make that happen. And it was just like a turning point, because he now, well, I don't want to steal because I would never want to hurt somebody. And he understands that's what happened. It wasn't that, oh, I took something, I got in trouble, so now I want to be more sneaky and not let anybody know. And it wasn't, you're a bad person. You did something bad. It was, okay, we harmed, there was some harm, and now this is how we make it better, because we asked, what can I do to make this harm better? And it was a really proud moment for me. So it's not there's not a disciplinary, protocol that they have at the school. It's an accountability and a restorative and transformative protocol.
Thank you all. Emma, I'm wondering if, hi, Amani. Emma, I'm wondering if you could just say a word or two. There's a parent who's wondering about what special rights looks like at Northern Lights. So if you could just maybe just you touched on it briefly when you were just talking about Otto. So if you,
Sure.
yeah.
So special rights is language that comes from Reggio Emilia, which is one of the philosophical underpinnings of our school community. The idea that there are kids who need like more help figuring stuff out in whatever way that is, and that it's the obligation of the community to do that. So that's where the language of special rights comes from. I can't speak to the fullness of it. I can speak to our experience, which is that our kid has had a refuge outside his classroom in the special rights classroom, and also honestly in the library. Those have been, and in the office, yeah, 3 refuges outside his classroom for when things are just too much, when he's too much, and when he's like overwhelmed. And it has felt very much like a collaborative process, even still now. Like I think the part of distance learning that's been most meaningful for our kid has actually been the ongoing work with his special rights teacher, Idalise, who is truly remarkable in her work, growing like his emotional vocabulary and skills and ability to connect. So. And it's a whole team, right? So there are EAs. Does that stand for educational assistant? Yeah, okay. So there's EAs in a number of classes. And those are folks that know not only the kids who are part of the special rights program, but they actually know all of our kids and our adults who are bringing other dimensions of themselves to the work also. So whether that's, their love of sports or their love of hello or their love of music, like they bring the fullness of themselves to the work, and having those additional adult humans present with our children has only been a blessing. It's been really helpful. Does that answer the question?
I think that you answered that question beautifully from your family's experience of it. Yeah. And you sort of gave us a natural segue. There are quite a few parents who are wondering what distance learning has looked like, but mostly how it has been for your family. And if you have seen sort of how our approach to distance learning is still sort of weaving in parts of our school's philosophy, or like how school's done in the building versus how you're experiencing school at home. So if you just want to touch on how distance learning has been for your family.
Do I have to go first again? Melissa, do you want to go first? Thanks.
Distance learning has been challenging to say the least for me. Working from home and trying to work with a kindergartner and 4th grader, it was too much. It was too much for me. I had other things going on, and I reached out for help, and my kids' teachers were right there. So I learned that apparently I cannot do 4th grade math. It is above my intelligence level. And so my daughter's teacher scheduled twice a week trainings with her. My son's teacher did some, I was really and am really well supported. I thought I was all prepared going into this, and it was like after the first week I realized that I was not prepared at all. And so I think that the school went above and beyond. They made themselves available. I talk to their teachers regularly. I get emails from the school. We have conversations, and I think that that was probably good for the first I don't know, a few months. As it progresses, it's getting increasingly difficult to get them to engage at all. But I don't think it has anything to do with the school or the curriculum. It's just they miss their friends, they miss that face to face. But regardless of what is happening, they keep trying and they keep soliciting input and they keep incorporating that input and they keep trying to do better and they keep asking how can we do better and keeping us in the loop. And so I really appreciate that, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it on my own. It was too much. So I think that I think they've done a good job. I really do. A short notice, and they continue to evolve the program, make changes. They send out surveys. They want to hear our voices. They want to hear our input, and they want to incorporate that into what they're doing. So I think that's a very important aspect.
Yeah, so for distance learning for us, I mean, distance learning is hard. I think no matter what school, no matter what age your kid is, distance learning is difficult, and it's going to be difficult for everyone. For us, a lot of the most difficult things right away were just kind of getting used to the technology and and those things. So we were kind of a not iPad family, even though our kids used them in St. Paul schools. That was one of the reasons that we switched over to Northern Lights. And so kind of getting used to that and getting them set up and getting the different apps, that was difficult. And honestly, we're in a good place that, they each have a device they can use. I think the school has ones that you can borrow if you don't. My wife and I are both home, working from home. I think even with they do pretty well in school. I think even with all those things in place, it's still difficult. And like I said, I don't think that changes anywhere. So I'm not trying to sugarcoat any of it. The things that I did like about Northern Lights and how they've approached it is like Melissa said, that flexibility. So that very first week when we started distance learning, if I compare what we were trying to do then compared to what we're doing now, there's been probably 3 or 4 kind of major iterations that have made it a lot more flexible. So flexible in terms of time. So, if you are a parent who is working from home and you've got a meeting, it's not like your kids all need to do the same thing at the same time. There are some things that they have classroom Zoom meetings, just kind of say hello sorts of things that are scheduled, but I don't think you can get around that if you want everyone there. There are things that we've kind of gone in and out of. So, maybe some stuff wasn't working well for us and kind of haven't done that as much, and then have done, the other things that are working well for us. There have been, I think a lot of the ideas that they've had are pretty creative. So, on one of the Zoom calls, I think it was last week, they were building forts. So my kids are grabbing the pillows and blankets and stuff. And there was some lesson related to forts. I didn't stay in there the whole time to do that. Also, the thing I mentioned earlier, the ziggurat towers that they built, there was like a video that they had to make. And so my twins kind of like covered up the screen and then they unveiled it. And one kid was like humming a song the whole time and they panned across their tower. And I kind of liked some of that, some of the flexibility and some of the projects like that went well for them. But honestly, there's some of the stuff didn't go well. So there was this bean project that we were supposed to grow beans and ours didn't grow. And they had to write a poem about the beans. And I can't remember what my one son's was, but I just remember the last line, it was not even 1 inch tall. That was the last line of his poem. So, there are things that worked, things that didn't work. I like their flexibility about it. I like the attempts at still maintaining that community with the Zoom meetings and checking in. Our classroom teacher has office hours. You can go at a certain time every day, and also you can call or set up an independent meeting with her if you need to, and we've done that a couple times. Also, the school, Emily and Rachel have sent out things in the mail. Every once in a while, the kids will get something in the mail with a little note, or there was I think their butterflies that you could plant that had seeds in them, if I remember right. Some things like that that I thought were really nice touches. And so I think the school has been recognizing that there's really a variety of how this fits in with all the different families, all the different family situations, all the different kid situations, that, you know, they're trying to be flexible while still maintaining that community through this hard time, and, you know, still trying to get the kids to keep learning. So I've appreciated that flexibility.
So I'll just start by saying the first few weeks were insane for us. And my workload at least tripled. And so I was working from home. My partner works construction, so he was gone. And I just finally broke down, and I was like, I feel like my son is a latchkey kid and he's home with me, because I had to try to set him up and do different things. And, you know, it's still difficult because you feel so bad, because if you're working at home, you have to do that work, and trying to not just keep them occupied in doing their work, but also like, you don't want to like get angry at them for sending them away, or, you know, they're asking a question. So it's been really hard on, I think, a lot of working at home families, in every family, right? This has just been a huge adjustment. And it's been hard. You know, we've been doing it until I finally just broke down and said, you know what, we're going to just do some unschooling here, and we'll learn through these different ways. We might not do the same things that the teachers are sending home, just not because of any other reason, except for I was getting very overwhelmed and trying to do all the things and make sure that he was taken care of and being engaged and doing this and doing his work. And, you know, and it's really hard for him. He's not a person that wants to sit down in front of a computer screen and do different things. If it's a game, he's all good, right? I don't know how kids know the difference. No matter how cool the learning is, it's not the same. But I mean, we've learned a lot of just grace. And I think that the school has had a lot of grace with all of us to trying to, you know, I have no idea how, and just like am just blown away by how successful this year has been, with the biggest wrench that we could have ever gotten thrown at us for a new school. And it's like, okay. And everybody at the school is like, all right, we're going to pick this up. We're not just going to say, you know, screw it, with it, just, okay, throw it down. It didn't work. We tried, we did everything. And you know, not only that, it's like, we didn't have games and different things to keep River occupied so much. And they like, oh, we'll bring some games. They brought a big box of stuff for him to be activities for him to do. You know, bringing meals, the weekly meals every week, and just doing those things. And like Mitch said, when we get things in the mail, I mean, it is like their birthday. It's like his birthday. He's like, oh my gosh, I got something. Oh, this is from Emily. Oh, this is from Rachel. Oh, it's from Michelle. Or it's from one of my friends. And, you know, it's hard. No one knew how to do this. And I can say that talking to a lot of parents who have kids at public schools, and it was way more overwhelming for them. There was not the grace that we've been shown as our school family. And it was much more just expectations of the families and the kids, and unrealistic, I would say. And so it's been amazing just to watch the school be so flexible and involved and ready, just to like, okay, we're going to take it on. We're going to take it on. So that's how it's been going for us. We're still, please let us go back next year, is all I have to say.
It's really good to hear all your stories. Oh my goodness. Distance learning has been a giant emotional roller coaster in our house, because every day is a giant emotional roller coaster with my particular children. And so it's been about riding that and like being with. And one of the things that I've heard you all saying, I feel like there's a sense of trust between the school and the families. Like I heard really clearly, don't do it like you don't have to, there's no boxes to check. This is about learning. There's space to do all kinds of learning. And I think our kids are learning from watching this process of the grownups learning and trying trying again and seeing how it goes. And like, we've been trying to follow our kids' desires around learning, and they've led to different places than just the stuff that's on Seesaw. My kid has no interest in writing how-to writing at all, but there were a few prompts that were acrostic poems. He has delved into the art of writing the acrostic poem. Has he shared any of them with his teacher? No, not any of them, but he has been like creating an oeuvre of acrostic poetry. It's bananas. But part of that comes from us saying you have to write at least 3 sentences every day, you know, which wasn't something he was doing at school. He was not able to do this writing at school, and he is able to do it at home. And that's interesting to see. And so I feel like I'm learning things about what my kid needs for learning that might set me up better to send him back into the learning community, hopefully when it happens in the fall or the spring or whenever that happens. Another piece is that we've had some more time, and I ran into a family at a park that actually reflected this back. We've had some more time to do learning that is part of our family's culture. So we speak Hebrew to our kids, but they didn't know how to read and write in Hebrew. So during this time, like, they have learned the alphabet. Otto has learned almost all the letters. The little one, Ida, has learned like a few of them, and they're starting to be able to like read and write in this language that is a cultural language for our family. And Otto's gotten interested in various offerings on the internet that have nothing to do with our school. So one of them is like a class in a 2,000-year-old text. I mean, he's obsessed with the ancient world, so it makes sense. But so he's been taking this ongoing class in this 2,000-year-old Jewish text every day at 3:30. There's a half hour of it, you know. A museum that my mother-in-law is a member of in New York has some offerings for families that he's loved on like Mesopotamian scrolls, you know. So finding those opportunities, which is what was happening for him at school, were opportunities to deepen things that he cared about learning and would be interesting for him. So finding ways to do that also at home, which isn't necessarily the prompt that's like on the table or doing it exactly this way. Sometimes it's quite orthogonal, but being able to witness the learning happen anyway. And Melissa, I think it was you who said that continuation of community has really mattered to him. So like, he was over the moon. He announced in the Zoom meeting of his class one day that he had no books left to read in the house. That was a lie. There are a bazillion books in our house. We've been taking advantage of the public libraries, contact list checkouts. Like, there are endless books for him to read, but he said in the Zoom call that there was no books in his house. So Valia, the librarian, sent an email and said, I'm coming, I have a stack of books for him. I'll be there tomorrow, you know? And so she came, and he was overjoyed to see her and to receive those books, and he's read them and loved them. And so, and then he had my mom read them, and they got to discuss them. So just seeing the relationships that have emerged. And then also, like, my 2 kids are becoming better friends with each other. They couldn't really play together well before this, and now they really can. And that's been really remarkable to see that shift happen. So it's different things than what we expected they would learn. And we're really grateful to do it in relationship with the School of Northern Lights, even if it's not always like, this seems like it would be exactly what's directly the thing.
Thank you all. We just have two more questions. So we have quite a number of incoming families from a neighboring charter school that is similar in sort of makeup and philosophy, but it was actually just closed back at the beginning of this month with everything else that's going on. So this is something these families are also experiencing right now, is the closure of their school community. And so this parent asks, we are so severely invested in how our kids learn and grow as people that we kind of got kicked in the butt with regard to our test scores and numbers on paper. Do you think Northern Lights does a good job of balancing the mission of growing a community and good humans while still achieving the academic benchmarks on our charter? So as you all know, it's our first year and we have distance learning. So some of that is up in the air, and Rachel has responded to this question via a comment online, but if any of you have any thoughts that you would like to share on that.
I mean, I'm sorry, go ahead, Emma.
Go ahead.
Okay, I would say that that was my biggest concern, and I was very very vocal about those concerns. Um, and the no homework thing, you know, I was like, I wasn't used to that. How do I gauge what they're doing? Like, what's going on? And I remember asking Rachel, okay, Melissa, don't freak out. Just ask Rachel. And I asked Rachel, why don't they have homework? And when she explained to me that they're in school the majority of the day, that's their learning environment. And when they're out of school, they need to also be learning how to function in a family unit, how to build relationships, and all of that. And I remember just taking a deep breath because for me, our we're like sunrise, sunset. Leave the house at sunset, get home, you know, or at sunrise, get home at sunset. We don't have a lot of time as a family, and so that time that we had was precious. And so when we had the first conferences, I don't want to get emotional, and I saw my daughter's writing, and I saw her math book, and the progress that she had made in a quarter compared to a whole year in public school. I left both of their conferences just over the moon because it all settled in that yes, they're working on helping build whole individuals, but the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, they're not getting left behind. I saw the progress with my own eyes and I left there feeling relieved. I didn't have any more concerns about if they, you know, I had questions like, are they going to be able to integrate, you know, when they get into a higher grade and they can't go here anymore, how are they going to be able to integrate into another type of school system? But they're teaching them everything that they know. And so I feel relieved. I trust Northern Lights with my kids because they've shown me in less than a year, the growth has been amazing, just amazing. And I look at my daughter's journals and stuff she writes at home, and it's like I can't even describe the growth and the growth of them as people too. So
I can say that also the same thing. We are just surprised every day by the things that River's learning, and just, I mean, his writing and his reading and his math skills. And we are like, who is this mathematical genius as a 5-year-old? You know, it's like learning all these things and they're just pushing him. And it's great to see because when he was in public school, it was different for him. He didn't want to learn. It was, I went to his conference and they talked a lot about like, I've never seen a kid not be able to do his ABCs and just pull up random letters. And I left and I was like, River, can you say your AB? And he just did it fine, but it was the anxiety that he felt. And he felt a lot of anxiety. So he would become very forgetful. And so it was really important that he was comfortable in his room and in that classroom before he could actually start to absorb and learn and be curious about learning. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is that they make learning something that is, you know, led by the student. Like, oh, I want to learn. Okay, great. And then they're excited about it and it's something fun and they're interested, and it's not sit down and do this paper and do this and do that. And as long as you get those skills that, you know, and you have those drilled into your head, you're good and we can move you on to the next grade. But it's really, the school is so centered in sparking the child's interest in learning and curiosity and learning through different means. My 2 older boys were in public school their whole lives, and they both struggled so terribly with the learning style that they were made, and it was the only option. That it is, again, something that is priceless to have River excited about learning and it being him, and he's learning in different ways, and to know that his teacher is saying, oh, well, maybe he doesn't learn in this isn't his learning style. Let me adjust for him so he can learn in this way. And then he just sparks up and he, you know, has his eyes light up and he's like, I get it. This is amazing. So I think that they're one and the same. You know, learning, you have to feel comfortable for your brain to be able to absorb and for you to be able to start to really learn and take those things in. So I think that it's that's a very important thing for just laying that foundation of learning and being able to have that academics behind you.
Yeah, so I won't take too much time, but you know, for us, so our kids went to a Waldorf preschool, and one of the things that I noticed about kind of the older grades there, when I was looking at 6th grade, 8th grade, like for math, they were drawing these really elaborate geometric paintings, and I thought, how can they possibly learn anything about school there? I bet their test scores are terrible. But a lot of the Waldorf kids are very smart and very successful in school. And I think that was a moment for me that kind of opened my mind to some different philosophical approaches like the School of Northern Lights uses. I think, you know, I think there are kids that learn well kind of in many different ways. One of the things that we had at our old school in, you know, 1st, 2nd grade, we had like a math workbook that they would do. You had to do a certain number of math sheets every week at home for homework, and you had to fill out your reading log. And for some of that, I felt like it was more busy work, you know, more kind of saying, well, they need to have homework, they need to be stressing the academics here, but didn't necessarily feel like they needed that. And when I think back to my time as a kid in elementary school, which granted is a long time ago, you know, I don't remember having any homework until probably 6th grade, you know, maybe one project a year or something like that. You know, I think it turns into this big philosophical argument on how kids learn. And I think one of the things that I like about Northern Lights is their philosophy is that kids are going to learn if they're put in the right environment, and that environment, while it might not appear to be as academically rigorous, they could potentially be learning more in many cases than if they were cranking out a stack of worksheets every day. And you know, it was a concern of mine as well. But, you know, we went to conferences, same sort of thing, you know, saw some things that they were doing in math and things like that. It's not just all touchy-feely sorts of, you know, community building activities, but they're really learning. And I think it's learning in more of a bigger way. It's learning within the bounds of the community and kind of building up a larger foundation, and the growth kind of happens from there. You know, how the test scores of the school will turn out, I have no idea. You know, who knows, right? But I feel like my kids are doing really well with this type of philosophy, and I feel like a lot of other kids are too.
Yeah, I was super glad that standardized testing was canceled this spring because, you know, who needs to sit through that? But and I personally have deep skepticism about that as a practice in our society. I'm not speaking for the school, but I'm speaking for me. I think it's undermining rather than promoting true learning, but that's a thing. I heard from the founders a really clear message that they chose an authorizer carefully that was looking at more than just test scores in terms of measuring the school's success. So I think that feels like a really important bottom line. And then the other, oh heavens, it's gone. There was another thing. Oh yeah, the other thing that I heard really clearly from Rachel, from teachers, from founders of the school, was this idea that our teachers are accountable for teaching our children the district standards every year. Our teachers are accountable for knowing what those standards are and for incorporating those practices into the learning that our kids are doing. Our kids aren't the ones who have to like tick the boxes. It's the teachers who have to construct learning with the children in a way that enables our children to meet the standards, but without even knowing that they're meeting any standards, right? The children's experience is of learning, and that feels really central. And totally, Melissa, it feels like exactly what you described.
All right. So the last question is one from Rachel. And Rachel wants to know, what are you most excited about if we get to return in the fall?
Did we kind of switch roles here, Emma? I think maybe. Um, um, I'm excited about a lot of things. I'm excited to see how much further the school is going to grow. Um, I am excited to hopefully have a sense of normalcy in my life that will allow me to be more proactive in the growth and development of the school and my kids. It's a top priority. I'm working hard towards it every day, and it means so much to me. But I'm also excited to see where they're gonna go from here. Are we gonna incorporate sports? Like, what are we gonna do? What else are we gonna do here to make these kids well-rounded individuals? But I'm just really excited to get them back into that environment of learning because they miss it and they blossomed so much. I can't wait to see what the next year is gonna bring. I'm super excited for them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, seeing all the other kids, seeing people in person, saying hi to the other parents, getting, PFG meetings going again, and parent group meetings, that's really exciting. My kids are dying to see their teachers and be in the school and their friends and the library and all that stuff again. I think kind of echoing what I was mentioning earlier, this was our first year. I think we've built a lot of foundations. People have started to get to know each other. The parents and the teachers are really forming friendships there. I think seeing how that can grow over the next year is what I'm really excited about. Whether that is kind of events that we're doing or kind of focusing on what the needs of the school are for the next step, it's not just did we get the doors open? Are we able to get by? Oh, now it's distance learning. Can we keep things going? But actually, looking forward to incorporating that philosophy more, moving beyond kind of the bare bones of just keeping the wheels on. That's exciting to me. I think Emma mentioned it earlier about just kind of the Reggio style. Getting more comfortable with that and getting the teachers more comfortable with it. Like I thought this year went well, but I think the more practice that they have in using those tools, the better it's going to get. In my mind, it's kind of like a snowball it's getting bigger and bigger and better and better. In the first year, I think was probably the hardest one. So I'm really excited to get back into school. I'm really excited for the second year, regardless of how that looks, even if there is a distance learning component.
So I'll just be real. I'm really excited, first off, to be able to have a day that I work without a child running around. Just being real right now. But no, I'm really, really excited for River to continue to build his connections with people and in the school. I'm really excited for him to be able to start to build more of those connections, and just watching him learn, watching all of those things, and having relationships that don't have to involve me as a parent. It's like he's building his own independence and his own people in his own place that I'm, yes, a part of, but it's his own, that's his place. And for him to be able to feel comfortable in that, and to continue to grow and be more comfortable learning new things, trying new things, just so many things. I'm also, I'm excited to be able to just walk in the door, and there's times that we'd have community or family coffee, parents coffee in the morning, and we're just like drop our kids off and sit there and just like, I don't even know if I want to leave for a while here. I'm just going to sit here and drink this good cup of coffee and talk to the people here and just connect. And I'll just say that we decided, we moved from our house last year, and we've decided that no matter where we move, we need to make sure it's in proximity to the school so we can really build and ground in the school. And that's one of our main priorities for our life. And And because it's been so good for River, we want to make sure that that is the center for him. So.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Being able to like do my job while my kids are at school and then do other things in the evening, that would be so exciting. I'm not counting on it, but that would be so exciting. I'm so curious what will happen. I think there's as many teachers who will be new to the school as there are teachers who will have spent this year in the school. So in certain ways, like we're starting again in a lot of ways, and a chance to continue to like watch and be part of shaping that story. I'm hoping that we'll be part of this school community for approximately a decade, right? Because our little one's starting kindergarten this fall. I'm feeling heartbroken imagining her not being able to get on the school bus and go to kindergarten, because she's been looking forward to that for 3 years since her brother did that. And I'm really hoping that she's able to get on the school bus and go to kindergarten. And yeah, watching the learning continue and deepen, and the community continue to grow. I hope that in the year ahead, we're able to build more community among parents. I think this time of isolation has made that really hard, especially with everybody juggling so much. So I think we have a lot to learn alongside our children, and getting the chance to do that together is what I'm really hoping for.
I just want to thank you, Melissa and Tanya and Mitch and Emma, for spending your evening with us. You know, the depth in which you were able to speak about what Northern Lights has meant to your family, and the way you spoke from your heart, really speaks louder and with much more truth than anything that Rachel and I can say when families call and ask questions about what's Northern Lights like. So I really appreciate you taking time to share your words with other families and parents and guardians who are wondering if this is the right fit for their families. So thank you very much.
Echoing that, thank you guys so much. We miss your kids and we miss seeing you. So tell them hi for us.
Yeah. All right. And for all of you watching on Facebook, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have questions, you can go ahead and email us info@schoolofnorthernlights, or you can continue to just comment in this thread, and we'll watch it for the next day or two. And we, if you have a question maybe for a specific parent, is it all right if we connect via email? And okay, cool, great. So thank you all. Have a great night and take care.